And then Loy Machedo from Loy Machedo TV and loymachedo.com with his doggy. Okay, we are going to do the book review that is, okay, fine, Steve Jobs' Way. Steve Jobs' Way by Jay Elliot. The How to Be Like Steve Jobs. Nice little book. The man who transformed the way we connect, communicate, and consume. The Steve Jobs Way. All right. Now, he managed to get the hackneyed kind of term, the I leadership, which he called it. So, what is this book about? In fact, let me go back a little further and tell you. The legend of Steve Jobs is still pretty alive. I mean, the messianic vision that he had is still there. He died in October 5th, 2011, and ever since he died, books, documentaries, audio tapes, articles have been written about him. And now even this movie is going to come out, which is Jobs, starring Ashton Kutcher, who plays the role of Steve Jobs. I'm just waiting to see the movie. Now, Steve Jobs, even his quotes have been repeated. We are here to make a dent in the universe. Otherwise, why else should we be here? So, this book was written by Jay Elliot, who worked with Steve Jobs. So obviously he had this personal touch with Steve Jobs, and he knew a little bit more than other people would. So the book is divided into, it contains 4 main areas, that is product, talent, organization, and marketing. I actually covered 2 in my written review. One is product. I mean, obviously, Steve Jobs is the man behind the iPod, the iPad, and the iPhone. Without him, these products would not be there, and it has revolutionized the way we communicate, the way we listen to music, the way we share information. In fact, he broke the monopoly that Microsoft had with its operating system. So now, applications can come out independently. In fact, I think the last Apple World Conference that was there, they said they paid around 5 billion, I'm not too sure, 5 billion US dollars to people who had developed applications. Now, the second part is talent. Steve Jobs was just crazy about getting the best talent in the world. If there's one example I could think of, it was the way he managed to, convince John Scully. At that time, Pepsi was a giant, and Apple was only like 4 years into its inception, and he gave him this line which really stands out, and I put this video link in the description below, where he gives the most famous line where he says, "Do you want to sell sugar water for the rest of your life, or do you want to come with me and change the world?" I mean, where else can you get a line like that other than Steve Jobs? Then the other philosophies of Steve Jobs that Jay Elliot managed to put as I leadership. The other one is always look for specifics, don't accept generalities. The second one is stimulating office environments. He created an office environment whereby everyone had to mix with everyone. The washrooms and even the pantry area was right somewhere in the center, so everyone had to meet. Then frequently pause and celebrate moments. When the first Macintosh came out, he made sure that everyone's signature was inside the Mac, even though the outsiders could not see, but people who had designed the Mac knew that their initials were inside. Then hold weekly product review meetings, and he would keep going at it until he found what he was looking for. The best ideas come. Let the best ideas flow instead of going through the organizational structure. He was very approachable, and he would dismiss each and every idea that came in, but he would still listen to them. Then reject, smoke blowers and, incompetence. And finally, have 3 or 4 product reviews per year. So these were the major areas that he focused on, the philosophies through iLeadership. Now, what makes this book incredible? I gave around 3 or 4 points here. The first one is, Steve Jobs was really a lucky bastard, if you actually ask me. I mean, he had some of the biggest mistakes ever made. One was he overpriced the computer, the Macintosh. Then he made it have a very small memory. Then after which he wanted total control of the product, which at that time it actually failed. Then the second, but the reason why he was able to get away with it is because of the iPod, the iPhone, and the iPad. Then the way he managed his the companies, that is Pixar and NeXT, it reached the point where it was going to die. It reached, like they say, the Carrier's point, where the guy went too close to the sun and his wings melted off. So he managed to, just survive only because it was at later on that Apple purchased NeXT on when December 20th, 1996, for a price of 429 million. And then Disney decided to purchase Pixar for a price of 7.4 billion. I mean, wow! Just look at that. Then we also kind of have to remember that Steve Jobs was pretty cold-blooded, and let us not forget the way he ousted Gil Amelio, Gil Amelio brought him back to Apple, and Steve Jobs kicked him out. So Steve Jobs was pretty cold-blooded. And finally, we keep speaking about the success of Pixar, but let's not forget the founder, that is Edwin Catmull, who bought. He managed to bring in the talent of John Lasseter, who was the main reason why Pixar was so successful. But overall, this book, The Steve Jobs Way, is pretty good, especially if you are if you're a big fan of Steve Jobs, because even few bits of information are worth listening to. However, there are certain inconsistencies in this book. For example, the Apple II was not introduced in 1976. It came out in June 1977. The other one was the iPhone was not introduced in 2007 but 2008. The popular song I Feel Good was sung by James Brown and not James Taylor. And finally, Steve Jobs' commencement address at Stanford, which was in 2005 and not 2009. Moment of truth. I found this book absolutely great. I loved it because I'm a fan of Steve Jobs. I think he's a genius and I miss him. I wish there were more people like Steve Jobs around in the world. So for whatever it was worth, I give this book a 6.5 out of 10. And I think if you are a fan of Steve Jobs, this is a book you must buy, you must read it, and you will really enjoy it because it gives you the ins and It gives you the ins and outs of Steve Jobs. So overall, thank you very much for watching. This is me and my doggy. What happened? Okay, this is me and my doggy saying goodbye for now. For the first ever dog and man book review of Steve Jobs' Way by the one and only, what's his name? Jay Elliot. So I hope you enjoy this book review. He's saying bye-bye for now. Thank you very much for watching. Okay, enough. Bye-bye. Oops.